Hello and welcome to UWO Now. I'm your host, Wendell Ray. Thank you for joining us for another conversation with a member of our UWO community. Katie Rasoul is a leadership coach, keynote speaker, and team culture expert, helping leaders change the world with her company, Team Awesome, and she's our guest today on UWO Now. Katie, thanks so much for coming by and talking to us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Team Awesome sounds awesome. Tell us what Team Awesome is.
Yeah, I do leadership coaching, executive coaching, and keynote speaking, and that's really the basis of my business. So I've run my own company for a little over 7 years now, and it's really always been based in teamwork and leadership development. And I was told I overuse the word awesome a lot, and so I said, well, let's double down, and made Team Awesome as my company name.
But who were you before Team Awesome? Tell us about your corporate path, and we'll talk a little bit more about your UWO career. But how did you become Chief Awesome Officer at Team Awesome?
Yeah, I spent really my adult career working in leadership development and HR and in leadership roles. So I started after graduation, really started working for Target Corporation for 9 years and was in HR leadership roles in the stores and different stores over the sort of different areas of Wisconsin. And then I ran a couple of stores as a leader. And so those are big stores. Those are I ran a $42 million business, and the number of people that end up working there are all under your leadership and purview. And then I wanted to really focus on leadership and talent development and HR more specifically. And so I moved into a corporate leadership role where I was responsible for organizational development, leadership development, and some of the corporate office functions from an HR perspective. So it was retail by accident, HR on purpose, and then I retired from my HR leadership role and started my own company.
Okay, so there must have been something that drew you to HR. What was it of all the functions that are a part of corporate America? Why did you? What made you gravitate toward the human resources aspect of corporate America?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that that was going to be my path. I was actually a finance major at UWO-Oshkosh, and through internships and just through some of the actual real live work experience that I started doing, I realized that I was really interested in people's experience, in their humanity, and showing up to work and what that meant and how people were motivated. And so my actual work experience ended up being in the HR space, and it was clearly a great fit for me, and just continued down that path and really wanted to continue to see people grow and be the best version of themselves, for leaders to be really well learned and educated in the functions of leadership. And so I've made that my passion, whether I was in a corporate role or in a role as my own business and being a leadership coach, to really help build skills for leaders, because those are the people that we talk about at the dinner table. And I want people to have great conversations, say, my boss did this and it be a really positive conversation, or work felt really great because of this. And I'm just super fascinated around people's experience and how that comes to be.
Well, in what you do now, that conversation around the dinner table, is it that positive? Are you finding people are having those positive conversations where they exist right now in their lives at work? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? What are you finding when you talk to people?
It is a mixed bag, right? And I think that especially over the last 4 years, the world of work and people's lives, I think everybody's DNA has been rewritten a little bit just based on change and based on going through the pandemic and other things in our lives that were different than they were before. And so what I always see things kind of as seasons, where people have moved out of some season of their life, but maybe their role isn't moving with them. And so I'm seeing people move into new roles, into better fitting roles, which is really exciting. But that change and uncertainty can always come with a little bit of conflict and not always feel great. And so I see that we are continuing to move towards better leadership. Millennials especially, we're the largest generation in the workforce, and we get it. We understand that we can expect quality leadership and inclusive companies, and we're really willing to go somewhere else to find it. And so I think it's a really interesting time when it comes to turnover, when it comes to people moving into different roles at this particular moment of our lives.
So this finding belonging, and I want to define that a little sharply a little later, but this belonging seems to me, just from hearing your conversation, there has to be an awareness on both parts, the employer and the employee, about what they want and what is needed. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think you hit that on the head. When I think about like what belonging looks like or what needs to happen, that's one of those key elements, is that there's sort of a self-awareness as well as a social awareness and some agreement between you and the community to which you belong of how that's supposed to look. And it really needs to be built on being a place of trust, that we care about humans, right? Humans before stuff, or humans over profit, or whatever we think about in the corporate world. And we just don't think about work in that way a lot. And
it's called work.
It's called
right?
work.
So just by the definition, that implies that there's going to be some grudgery. There's going to be some. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. You're not always going to get what you want. It's going to be work. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But I guess it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I think all those things are true. Like, we go there for a paycheck, but we spend more than 40 hours a week, often at work, and that's a really big chunk of our week. And so I think that our time has to do more than just be a paycheck when we're at work. And I believe that we go to work in search of belonging, whether we realize it or not. Like, we're looking for more than just the paycheck when we go to work. And that's important for organizations to understand and to recognize that, like, what an opportunity that is. Like, we have people coming and spending more time with us in our workplace than they even spend in their own home or with their own kids. Why would we not see that as an opportunity to make this a workplace, an experience that enhances people's lives?
Good question. So, has there been opposition to that, making the workplace that's good place for a worker? Has there been leadership who says, we got a bottom line I'm trying to achieve. If that person doesn't like it here, I'll find somebody else?
Of course. Some people get it. Some people are understanding where we're headed and are on board. They're on the train and are making incredible places to work. Some people are. And then I think there's a lot of leaders and a lot of organizations that are still ascribing to the faulty assumption that it has to be one or the other, that you can't build a workplace on a great culture and still be profitable. Or when things get hard, culture is the first thing to go. And why does that have to be true? And I really challenge leaders and organizations to challenge that assumption and to find the overlap. How can both of these things be true? And what would that look like for us to be successful in whatever we're trying to measure in our finances, in our work, in our product, and just be a great place for people to exist? Why can those two things not be there at the same time? And we need to revisit that assumption and look at it with a fresh lens.
We've talked about or mentioned the word belonging. Let's define that for our audience. Never want to assume that everybody gets it and understands what belonging might mean. What is a definition of belonging as it relates to our conversation here today?
Sure. I don't know that I have one good sentence to make it a Webster definition of belonging. I'm sure they have a definition. I shared with you what some of those components are, being trust and human caring and having some commonality and being committed to that community in some way. You can't just be sort of an individual rogue and not give back to the community. That's part of it. So I think those are really important components for belonging to exist. But what I talk a lot rather than defining belonging, I say, like, what does it feel like? And people can always tell me what it feels like. And if I distill that down into a few key words, is that it feels safe, and that it feels like love, and it feels whole. And we do not use those words to describe work. Mm-mm. And so that's why it feels a little funny to talk about those things and to say, like, what does that have to do with work? So that's really how I define it, is on what it feels like. And those are the words that I use to say what belonging should feel like.
You're listening to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray. Today we're talking with Katie Rasoul, UWO graduate and leader of her own company called Team Awesome. And we're talking about corporate culture, essentially, and how we can make it more satisfying for the worker, so they feel a sense of belonging. Not, as you said, it's not something you define and you go out and have structured belonging, but belonging is more of a sense that an individual has. Is then belonging very individualistic? And then if that is the case, how does a corporation that has 1,000 employees create belonging for all those people?
I think that's a great question. It is going to be individualized to everyone's sense of what they need and what they are looking to gain from the community that is their workplace. However, belonging is a basic human need. And so it's universal in the sense that everyone is seeking some sense of belonging, to be a part of something, and the components of feeling safe, of like feeling loved and being part of the group and feeling like they can show up as their whole selves just as they are basic human feelings and components. So it doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter who you are. There's going to be some aspect of that as human nature where we're seeking those things out.
Okay, so how do you help leaders, help organizations develop this culture at their workplaces so that their workers and employees feel these love and security and all those things we talked about? What do you tell them? What are the first steps that they have to take?
Yeah, we're really trying to rewire the lens of which we look at these relationships with the people that work for us and with us. When I think about safety, for example, we're talking about psychological safety and, of course, physical safety. That's like, of course we mean that. But what we're really talking about is that people feel that their team, their group is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, that they can disagree and it's not going to be met with some sort of detrimental behavior from their boss and from their teammates. And so we talk about what does it mean to be safe? What are the components that you need to build with your team in order to create psychological safety? And so teaching leaders that having candor, having a group agreement, being part of the group and seeing themselves as responsible for creating safety and transparency. We teach people how to do that. And on the same side, what does it look like when safety is missing, right? Is that it's silent. People don't tell you their opinion, or they don't contribute because they don't believe that their contributions matter or that it's going to be beneficial for them to say it. And so teaching people, like, this is what safe looks like. This is what it looks like when people don't feel safe. And here are some ways that you can go about building it. What's tricky is there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing. We would have done it already. We would have shouted it from the rooftops. I think a sense of belonging is really built out of a billion tiny moments over the course of time. And a quality leader who understands that is building trust in every little one of those moments when they interact with people, that they're showing that they care about them as a human in all of these small opportunities. You can't check the box It's really something that people need, it's a lifestyle change, it's not a diet. You got to be able to create these moments, because as humans, we sort of scan our environment subconsciously looking for cues like, do I belong here? Is this safe here?
Absolutely.
And so when we can scan the environment and say like, oh yeah, I'm good here, this is okay, then we can do our best work and we can feel like we're part of something bigger at work.
That scanning that goes on, it does happen, and it happens, as you said, subconsciously a lot of times. So does an employee always recognize when the environment where they work is an environment where they feel belonging? In other words, well, let's take you. Did you feel a sense of belonging when you were at work? And if not, when was the aha moment that you did or did not know that?
Yeah, I think when we think about how we feel walking into the building, or if you have the Sunday scaries and you are having a level of anxiety on Sunday evening, knowing
I've worked at places
right?
like that. Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. That's the feeling. And or going in just being really excited to do whatever it is you're supposed to do that day. So I think people can recognize that, but most people don't have the language or the understanding that they're like, yes, I feel like I belong today, or I don't feel safe. I've scanned the environment. Nobody says that, right? Like, because
it's been a minute since I've said that. Yes.
Yeah. And so even when they leave organizations, I used to do exit interviews. Like, why are you leaving? What was your experience? And people can tell you what their experience was and what they were feeling, but they're not going to hand it to you in the language that you're looking for. Nobody's going to say that. And so we have to be able to understand people's experiences and start to put that together with what we're actually doing in our workplaces. And the data is all there. It's all available to us. We give employee engagement surveys to people to say, what's your experience like here? Do you feel supported by your coworkers? That data would match everything I heard in exit interviews. I can think of one department that I was responsible for in a corporate environment, and this was the problem child. It was the worst engagement on the survey scores. The exit interviews told me everything I needed to know about what their experience was like. And someone would leave, and leaders were like, why are they leaving? They're really great. I don't understand. I'm like, what don't you understand? It's all right here in the things that we already measure. We have to be willing to look at them differently.
We're talking today with Katie Rasoul, who is a UWO graduate and author and leader of her own awesome company called Team Awesome. And we're talking today about corporate culture and how leaders at companies and even individuals at companies create a sense of belonging to make their workers want to be there. But let's talk a little bit about Katie Rasoul. How did little Katie get to UWO, and what was your path here? And then shortly after your graduation, tell us about what got you to Target.
Sure. I knew that I wanted to be in a college of business. And so I had actually declared and knew I was going to be a finance major before entering school. So when I was looking at colleges, I was really impressed with the College of Business at UW-Oshkosh. It was the right size. It was a decent distance from home. I grew up in Rasoul, Wisconsin, and so it was long enough that I could be away, but short enough that like, if I had to do laundry, I could go home. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got here. And so I was really excited about the College of Business out of the gate. And the rest is history. I mean, I graduated as a finance. Actually, I have 2 degrees from Oshkosh. I have a French degree and a finance degree. So 2 different colleges.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you left UWO with this finance and French, this French and finance degree, or degrees. And what was your direction? Where did you go?
Yeah, I remember being on campus. It was maybe the first or second internship fair that had ever happened when I was still here. And I was handing out resumes and saw the target table, and I was, that looks really fun. And so after a little bit of reflection and interviewing, I actually took the internship with Target. It just seemed like, wow, this feels really dynamic and
this
interesting.
Is what year for you? Your junior, senior?
Yeah, it would have been heading into the summer between junior and senior year.
Okay.
And so I did that summer internship with Target, and like I was in. It was an incredible place to start a career. It was a really great example of what good looked like, especially when it came to what I think HR should be and what culture should be. And so I appreciated the opportunity to see things done with excellence in that space, and I really wanted to be a part of that. And that's why Target was such a good fit for me, is because I went and was an HR leader in a couple of different stores in Wisconsin. And then I ran a couple of stores as a store team leader, store director. And I've just always really been most interested in the development of people, the development of leaders, and just the overall employee experience that people have. And I've learned some hard lessons along the way. And I think those were some of the most formative years of my career, was working in the stores for Target.
Okay. So let's talk specifically about what you do as now someone who tries to guide and teach leaders. You talked about exit interviews, and then when people leave a corporation or a business and they spell out explicitly their experience. What were you finding they were saying? And then how do you help leaders see that there's an issue here and this is how we tackle it? What are the steps? First, what is the issue? Then how do you present that to management, leadership, and then get them to understand that this is an issue and this is how we need to approach it?
Sure. I think the biggest factor to start with for this even to be successful was that I had built a lot of trust with the team I was sort of the HR partner for. So when I would do an exit interview, they talked.
Yeah.
It was not sort of their
no problem. Now I'm leaving, so
Yeah.
I can be as free as a bird. I can tell you what happened at lunch 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
they're going to tell you everything, right?
They really did. And like nobody was launching grenades, but ultimately they felt like I could tell this person because we've had a rapport and we had built trust. So I remember doing one exit interview. The leader had come to me and say, so-and-so's leaving my team. She's moving out of state with her boyfriend. Case closed. Okay. So I go and do the exit interview and get the real story. It was like she was so uncomfortable with her manager. She felt really unsafe. It was a really teeny team. She just felt had all of these, describe all of these feelings of what it felt like to be led in this way from her boss, from her leader. And she was so uncomfortable with her boss that she felt the need to like escape and move 3 states away. Wow. And drag her boyfriend with her to like get out. And so it helps to get the real story and to really understand what her experience was like. And it's a difficult task then to go to that leader and, we know that this is coming from this person. And I handle that with a great deal of care. But to say like, this is what we talked about, and it's different from what you described. Why do you think we got a different story from this person? And so do
the dukes go up at that point? Is this person defensive or are they receptive?
It depends. I think both. But that's someone who I built a lot of trust with as well. So to be able to say like, look, I'm going to give it to you straight. Yeah. And here's what I know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what happened?
So that was really tough for her to hear. She was, over the course of a slow period of time, like really, really willing and committed to hearing more, trying new things, really became a partner with me. Like, was she perfect all the time? No. But she was willing to try and make mistakes and ask questions and asked for feedback in a way that I think really made a difference for the rest of the people that worked in her department. So it really, when you have a leader who's willing to recognize where their responsibility lies in making changes to their leadership, even when it's hard and it's hard to hear, that's magic. That affects people's lives, and that affects the dinner table conversation that people take home at the end of the day. And I think that's just work that I want to be a part of.
So I'm hearing a couple of words that keep coming up. One, trust. I'm hearing not the word, but feeling, communication. And I'm hearing from your conversations that there's also got to be an ability to be open and receptive to criticism and change. Are those keys to, and also it seems like we're not talking just about corporate culture as, something that is handed down from on high, but this is more individual, person to person kind of stuff. Is that right or no?
Yeah, ultimately, it doesn't matter where we're working or what industry or what the business is, right? These are just human elements. And sometimes we think those get lost or we forget along the way. And that's exactly right. We've built trust. We've built rapport. You trust that I have your back and that I'm going to be supportive of you. That changes everything about how the work gets done. I don't think I've ever seen an employee engagement survey or met an organization that didn't say we could use more communication. And so I think that's always a place worth investing time and energy. And it really is just about how do we work together? What is it that you need so that you have your needs met and you can function well in the organization? And especially when things get challenging, right? We assume that those are the things that we're going to toss because we just got to get down to business. And the reverse is actually more effective.
Okay, so then creating this belonging is not a program that gets put into place at a company. What is it then? What are you telling specifically, again, when you're meeting with this team of leaders at X corporation, you look at their data, what do you tell them that we've got to do? And obviously it's going to change depending on what the data is, but in general, how do you get them to say, okay, this is what you got to do, and this is been my experience in how to best achieve that?
Yeah. I really ask leaders to think about from each vantage point that they have. So especially like C-suite or people who are in large leadership roles, they are responsible for the vision and the culture of the organization, like the whole hive. Yeah. And so there's things that we can do that help set us up for success that are maybe policies, procedures, just the way we live our values as an organization. That's in their hands in a lot of ways. But they also have a team that reports into them, and they're responsible for the experience of that unit and those people and how those people work together as a group. It's like a collective living being is the group itself. And then themselves, how do they show up? How do they, understand themselves so that they can belong with themselves and create space for others to be in community with them? And so we have a vantage point as every player in that game. And those are all places where we can make tweaks and adjustments. So we build processes and policies that put humans before stuff. That's easy. You can do that in the way that you build the organization. If you are a leader, you can lead in a way, right, that puts you squarely as part of the team, showing what it looks like to be vulnerable, showing what it looks like to build safety, and really managing the experience of the people directly around you. And it's on a kind of a continuum. And if we each did just one thing better in any of those spaces, can you imagine what the collective nature of that would be? It would be an astounding shift to the status quo. And so there's no box checking. There's no single one thing that's going to get us there, because it is this collection of small moments over time. And if leaders are willing to take on the responsibility of that, it can be pretty amazing.
Okay. Well, great stuff. Thanks very much, Katie, for coming by and talking to us today on UWO Now. It's been good to meet you, and it sounds like you've got a lot of work to do. It seems like there's a lot of companies out there that could use your expertise, so I hope that you're busy. Are you?
I am. I think that there's no lack of opportunity for leaders to grow, and we're certainly seeing that. And it's an honor to do that work and help people be a part of people's leadership journey.
Okay. You've been listening to UWO Now. Thanks so much for joining us today. I want to thank our guest, Katie Rasoul, for joining us as well. Remember to catch the latest episode of UWO Now. Go to our website, wrst.org. You can also watch us on the UWO YouTube page and any of your favorite podcasting platforms. That's all the time we got for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Until the next time.